The Southern Railway was a U.S. Class I railroad that was based in the southern United States. It was the product of nearly 150 predecessor lines that were combined, reorganized and recombined beginning in the 1830s, formally becoming the Southern Railway in 1894. At the end of 1970, Southern operated 6,026 miles of railroad, not including its Class I subsidiaries AGS CofG S&amp, a CNOTP GS&amp F and 12 Class II subsidiaries. The railroad joined forces with the Norfolk and Western Railway in 1982 to form the Norfolk Southern Corporation. The Norfolk Southern Corporation was created in response to the creation of the CSX Corporation. The Southern Railway was renamed Norfolk Southern Railway in 1990 and continued under that name ever since. 7 years later, in 1997, the railroad absorbed the Norfolk and Western Railway, ending the Norfolk and Western's existence as an independent railroad. History. Official predecessors: Richmond, York River and Chesapeake Railroad, Richmond and Danville Railroad, Memphis and Charleston Railroad, East Tennessee, Virginia and Georgia Railway, Cincinnati, New Orleans and Texas Pacific Railway. Creation and independence status: the pioneering South Carolina Canal and Railroad Company, Southern's earliest predecessor line and one of the first railroads in the United States, was chartered in December 1827 and ran the nation's first regularly scheduled steam-powered passenger train, the wood-burning best friend of Charleston, over a 6-mile section out of Charleston, South Carolina, on December 25, 1830. By 1833, its 136-mile line to Hamburg, South Carolina, was the longest in the world. As railroad fever struck other southern states, networks gradually spread across the South and even across the Appalachian Mountains. By 1857, the Memphis and Charleston Railroad was completed to link Charleston, South Carolina, and Memphis, Tennessee. But rail expansion in the South was halted with the start of the Civil War. The Battle of Shiloh, the Siege of Corinth and the Second Battle of Corinth in 1862 were motivated by the importance of the Memphis and Charleston line, the only east-west rail link across the Confederacy. The Chickamauga Campaign for Chattanooga, Tennessee was also motivated by the importance of its rail connections to the Memphis and Charleston and other lines. Also in 1862 to the Richmond and York River Railroad, which operated from the Pamunkey River at West Point, Virginia to Richmond, Virginia, was a major focus of George McClellan's Peninsula Campaign, which culminated in the 7 Days Battles and devastated the tiny rail link. Late in the war, the Richmond and Danville Railroad was the Confederacy's last link to Richmond, and transported Jefferson Davis and his cabinet to Danville, Virginia just before the fall of Richmond, Indiana, April 1865. Known as the First Railroad War, the Civil War left the South's railroads and economy devastated. Most of the railroads, however, were repaired, reorganized and operated again. In the area along the Ohio River and Mississippi River, construction of new railroads continued throughout Reconstruction. The Richmond and Danville system expanded throughout the South during this period, but was overextended, and came upon financial troubles in 1893, when control was lost to financier J.P. Morgan, who reorganized it into the Southern Railway system. Southern Railway came into existence in 1894 through the combination of the Memphis and Charleston Railroad, the Richmond and Danville system and the East Tennessee, Virginia and Georgia Railroad. The company owned 2/3 of the 4,400 miles of line it operated, and the rest was held through leases, operating agreements and stock ownership. Southern also controlled the Alabama Great Southern and the Georgia Southern and Florida, which operated separately, and it had an interest in the central of Georgia. Additionally, the Southern Railway also agreed to lease the North Carolina Railroad Company, providing a critical connection from Virginia to the rest of the southeast via the Carolinas. Southern's first president, Samuel Spencer, drew more lines into Southern's core system. During his 12-year term, the railway built new shops at Spencer, North Carolina, Knoxville, Tennessee, and Atlanta, Georgia, built and upgraded tracks, and purchased more equipment. He moved the company's service away from an agricultural dependence on tobacco and cotton and centered its efforts on diversifying traffic and industrial development. Spencer was killed in a train wreck in 1906, after the line from Meridian, Mississippi, to New Orleans, Louisiana was acquired in 1916 under Southern's President Fairfax Harrison. The railroad had assembled the 8,000-mile, 13-state system that lasted for almost half a century. The central of Georgia became part of the system in 1963, and the former Norfolk Southern Railway was acquired in 1974. Despite these small acquisitions, the Southern disdained the merger trend when it swept the railroad industry in the 1960s, choosing to remain a regional carrier. In 1978, President L. Stanley Crane said the refusal to add routes through merger was a mistake, especially the decision not to add a connecting route to Chicago. The Southern tried to gain access to Chicago by targeting the Monon Railroad and the Chicago and Eastern Illinois Railroad, but both those railroads went to Southern's competitor, the Louisville and Nashville Railroad. A decade later, Crane tried to rectify the situation by merging with the Illinois Central Railroad. When that failed, he petitioned the Interstate Commerce Commission to give Southern the old Monand routes and the old Atlantic Coast Line route from Jacksonville to Tampa by way of Orlando, among other properties, as a condition of the ICC's approval of the Seaboard Coast Line chassis system merger in 1979. While the request was supported by the ICC's Enforcement Bureau, it was ultimately unsuccessful, becoming part of the Norfolk Southern Corporation. In response to the creation of the CSX Corporation in 1980, the Southern Railway joined forces with the Norfolk and Western Railway and formed the Norfolk Southern Corporation in 1980, which began operations in 1982, further consolidating railroads in the eastern half of the United States. The Southern Railway was renamed Norfolk Southern Railway in 1990 and absorbed the Norfolk and Western Railway into its system in 1997. The railroad then acquired more than half of Conrail in 1999. Notable features: Southern and its predecessors were responsible for many firsts in the industry. Starting in 1833, its predecessor, the South Carolina Canal and Railroad, was the first to carry passengers, U.S. troops and mail on steam-powered trains, and it was the first to operate at night. On June 17, 1953, the railroad's last steam-powered freight train arrived in Chattanooga, Tennessee, behind 282 locomotive No. 6330. From dieselization and shop and yard modernization to computers and the development of special cars, the unit coal train and radio-controlled mid-train helper locomotives, Southern often was on the cutting edge of change, earning the company its catchphrase, "Southern gives a green light to innovation." In 1966, a popular steam locomotive excursion program was instituted under the presidency of W. Graham Claytor, Jr., and included Southern veteran locomotives such as Southern 630, Southern 722 and Southern 4501, along with non-Southern locomotives. such as Texas and AMP Pacific 610, Canadian Pacific 2839 and Chesapeake and AMP Ohio 2716. The steam program continued after the 1982 merger with the Norfolk and Western to form the Norfolk Southern, though increased operating costs and concerns ended the program in 1994. Norfolk Southern reinstated the steam program on a limited basis from 2011 to 2015 as the 21st Century Steam Program. In the early 2000s, a 22-mile loop of former Southern Railway right-of-way encircling central Atlanta neighborhoods was acquired and is now the Beltline Trail. Passenger trains, along with its famed Crescent and Southerner. The Southern's other named trains included Aiken-Augusta Special, Asheville Special, Birmingham Special, Carolina Special, Florida Sunbeam, Kansas City Florida Special, Peach Queen, Pelican, Piedmont Limited, Ponce de Leon, Queen and Crescent Limited, Royal Palm, Skyland Special, Sunnyland, Tennessean, roads owned by the Southern Railway, Alabama Great Southern Railroad, Albany and Northern Railway, Atlantic and AMP, Eastern Carolina Railway, Birmingham Terminal Company, Camp Lejeune Railroad Company, Carolina and Northwestern Railway, Central of Georgia Railway, Cincinnati, New Orleans and Texas Pacific Railway, Chattanooga Station Company, Chattanooga Traction Company, Georgia and Florida Railroad, Georgia Ashburn Sylvester and Camilla Railway, Georgia Northern Railway, acquired in 1967, Georgia Southern and Florida Railway, Interstate Railroad, Kentucky and Indiana Terminal Railroad, Knoxville and Charleston Railroad, Live Oak Perry and Gulf Railway, Louisiana Southern Railway, New Orleans and Northeastern Railway, New Orleans Terminal Company, Norfolk Southern Railway Company, Savannah and AMP Atlanta Railway, St. Johns River Terminal Company, State University Railroad Company, South Georgia Railway, Tennessee, Alabama and Georgia Railway, Tennessee Railway, Major Railroad Yards, Chattanooga, Tennessee, Debutts Yard, Atlanta, Georgia, Inman Yard, Spencer, North Carolina, Spencer Yard, Town of Spencer, Birmingham, Alabama, Norris Yard, Knoxville, Tennessee, Sevier Yard, Macon, Georgia, Brosnan Yard, Sheffield, Alabama, Sheffield Yard, Alexandria, Virginia, Potomac Yard. Company offices. Presidents of the Southern Railway: Samuel Spencer, William Finley, Fairfax Harrison, Ernestine Norris, Harry A. Debutts, D. William Brosnan, W. Graham Claytor, Jr. L. Stanley Crane, Harold H. Hall. Bibliography: Murray, Tom. Southern Railway, St. Paul.